Welcome to the Storytime Adventure for Adults video series. Today we'll be reading Part 1, Chapter 1983, pages 30 to 35 of Songs from the Depths by Meg Swanson. Off the coast of Cape Cod, there is an island of rock where pure white selkies gather just after the first frost of the year. The residents of the town find the gathering peculiar. Seals don't usually enjoy lying on cold rocks, yet there they are. Year after year, chilled fog slips across calm waters. As it clears, fishermen see them, waiting. "You'll watch until I'm gone?" Brin asked her new husband as the boat rocked gently. Patrick looked bravely at his beautiful bride. "I promised you I would, and I will be waiting right here on the first day of spring." He picked up the fur coat that was as white as the first snowfall. But when Brin tried to take it, Patrick tightened his grasp. "No, stay with me. I know I promised you and your family that this would be our arrangement, but I have your coat. You have to stay with me." Patrick's eyes grew hard as he continued to refuse to relinquish the fur. Brin's deep brown eyes narrowed. "Patrick," she said warningly, "we've been over this. I need to go back. You promised. Give me my coat." Patrick released the coat with a sigh and lit a cigarette. "I can't believe I let you talk me into this." Brin smiled and took the cigarette from his lips, crushing it out. "I didn't talk you into anything. You are very level-headed and very understanding." Brin turned her head at the barking from the island. "I'm coming," she called. She looked at Patrick one final time. "Try not to smoke too much while I'm gone." Patrick looked her up and down and knew he would always remember her this way. Flaming red hair falling over her shoulder in a thick braid, chocolate brown eyes shining brightly with unconcealed excitement, and her coat around her shoulders like a cape. She looked like a medieval warrior. He blinked and she was gone. In her place was an icy white seal. She flipped off the boat and swam off. As promised, Patrick stayed in his rowboat, oars dripping cold seawater onto the deck, and watched Brin swim toward her other family. Then right before they vanished into the horizon, she turned, leapt out of the water, and waved a flipper at Patrick. "Right," he said. "Time to go home." Patrick slid another cigarette out of his pocket. It was a vice he tried to only allow himself while Brin was gone in the winter. As he relaxed into the rhythmic rowing, Patrick reflected on how his life had turned into a mythic love story. Oars slapped the water, sending ripples out to forever. She had been trespassing. Patrick lived a very solitary life and was angry at having his haven intruded on by this interloper. Patrick was already shouting at her as he tied his pocket trawler to the dock. She rolled around, wild-eyed. Her skin was as white as the fog that hovered over the top of the sea and kissed the sandy shore in the morning. Her hair was blowing in the wind and glowed like the embers of a dying fire. She screamed and grabbed her towel off the beach. No, not a towel, a coat. Before Patrick could reach her, the woman threw her coat over her shoulders and shrank down to the body of a seal. She dove into the foamy waves and vanished. What the hell was that thing? Patrick spent the next several days researching what he learned were selkies. It turned out that they were distant cousins of the much more violent sirens. Selkies, unlike their relatives, lived most of the days as seals, but every so often a human would catch their eye and draw them to land. "So I caught her eye," Patrick said to himself. He felt smug as he read on and learned that if a human found and successfully hid a selkie skin, they could keep the selkie indefinitely. Keep? Sounds more like kidnapping to me. Patrick felt a little ill, and more than a little disgusted at humans' behavior toward magic and its keepers. Patrick started to watch for the selkie. All he wanted was to see her again, to tell her that she would be safe on his beach, to apologize for humanity, and what? What could he possibly tell her to get her to trust him? Nothing. There was nothing. And so after a few weeks he gave up hope. Maybe I wasn't what caught her eye. Perhaps it was my private piece of land, Patrick thought ruefully. One morning, after setting his lobster cages, he motored out to the deeper waters to cast his net. He had settled in with a book and a cigarette when he heard a soft bark. He glanced up. There she was, stepping out of the coat on his shore. Patrick yelped as he dropped the cigarette on his lap. The Selkie straightened, apparently startled by the sound that had carried over the water. He hurriedly brushed the ash off his jeans, pulled his mid-water trawler net back in. After all he had read, he didn't want to risk catching something he hadn't meant to, and headed back to shore. The Selkie stood unmoving as she watched Patrick come back. He hit the sandy bottom of the shore with a jerk and jumped off the deck of the boat, splashing into the water. Patrick rubbed his sweaty hands on his singed jeans and said, "Hi." She eyed him suspiciously. "Hello." Patrick stepped forward and was surprised when his foot squelched inside his shoe. "I need to come out of the water. It's cold. I'm not interested in taking your skin or keeping you here." She nodded, but remained on her guard. Patrick held his hands up and squished the rest of the way to dry land. "My name is Patrick." "Hello, Patrick." "Will you tell me your name?" "No." Patrick shrugged and pulled a cigarette out of his nearly empty pack. "Okay. Well, I just think that if you're going to trespass on my beach, I should get to know your name." "That's a gross habit, you know. Gross for everyone. And it smells everywhere, even in the water." Patrick didn't put his cigarette out. "I will keep that in mind." The Selkie reached for her skin. "I'm sorry to have trespassed on what you believe is your beach." Out of sight, but not out of heart, the winter nights, black and long, spring not even aglow on the horizon. That was Part 1, Chapter 1983, pages 30 to 34, from Songs from the Depths by Meg Swanson. On April 1st, we will continue reading from that chapter. If you can't wait until then to hear how the story goes, feel free to purchase the book at www.megswanson.me. Next week, we will read Humanity's Evolution, Part 17. To learn more about this video series and the Humanity's Evolution videos, feel free to visit my website at www.reneeannhughes.com. If you would like to contribute to these series, please feel free to become a Patreon. Details for joining are on my website, and also please subscribe to this YouTube channel so you won't miss any new videos. Goodbye, and thanks for listening.